Lisa Kudrow just revealed what male writers were actually saying behind the scenes of Friends. For decades, Friends was seen as this wholesome sitcom that defined a generation. But behind the scenes, the writers' room told a very different story. Lisa Kudrow recently opened up about what was actually happening in those meetings, and it was dark. The room was dominated by male writers who didn't just crack jokes, they regularly made explicit sexual comments about their female co-stars. Jennifer Aniston and Courteney weren't treated as colleagues or talented actresses. They were reduced to their bodies, the subjects of crude remarks that happened day after day. What made it worse was how normalized it had become. The 2006 lawsuit filed by the female writer laid out a pattern of behavior that went far beyond off-color jokes. According to the legal documents, these weren't occasional slip-ups or moments of poor judgment. This was sustained, repeated harassment that happened regularly in the workspace where she was trying to do her job. The allegations included crude, explicit remarks about Jennifer Aniston's body. We're not talking about casual compliments, these were graphic sexual comments made openly in the writer's room. The lawsuit also documented similarly inappropriate remarks about Courteney, with writers making anatomically explicit comments that had nothing to do with the work they were supposed to be doing. But it went beyond just talking. The lawsuit described instances of physical behavior that crossed serious lines. Writers were allegedly mimicking masturbation during actual work meetings. Think about that for a moment. Imagine trying to pitch a joke or contribute an idea while your male colleagues are acting out sexual gestures around you. What made this particularly damaging was the repetition. The female writer documented that she asked them to stop multiple times. She made it clear the behavior was unwelcome and inappropriate. And yet it continued. That's not a misunderstanding or a cultural difference, that's a deliberate choice to ignore someone's explicit request to stop harassing them. The 2006 lawsuit didn't pull punches when it came to naming names. It specifically called out writers Lyle, Greg Malins, Adam Chase, and Andrew Reich as the primary perpetrators of this harassment. What made the situation even worse was that this wasn't a one-time incident or a single bad day in the office. This was a documented pattern of behavior that spanned years. The female writer involved made it clear in her legal filing that she had repeatedly asked these men to stop. She'd spoken up directly, asked them to keep their comments professional, and made it known that their behavior was making her uncomfortable and affecting her ability to do her job. But the harassment continued anyway. That's the crucial detail here. This wasn't a case of miscommunication or guys who didn't realize they were crossing a line. These were people who were explicitly told their behavior was inappropriate and chose to keep doing it. The pattern showed a workplace where certain individuals felt emboldened to act this way, where there seemed to be no real consequences for their actions, and where speaking up as a woman didn't actually make the behavior stop. It painted a picture of a systemic problem within the writer's room itself. What makes Kudrow's recent openness so significant is the timing. We're talking about a 2006 lawsuit that documented years of harassment, yet it took nearly 2 decades for one of the show's stars to publicly acknowledge what was happening behind closed doors. That silence wasn't accidental. It reveals the real power imbalance that existed in that writer's room. The female writer who filed the lawsuit had to choose between her career and speaking up. Coming forward meant risking her reputation, her job prospects, and being labeled as difficult or unable to take a joke. That's the environment that enabled this behavior to continue unchecked for so long. Kudrow speaking about it now matters because it validates what that writer experienced and shows that even on one of television's most beloved shows, there was a dark underbelly. It also demonstrates how systemic this problem was across Hollywood. These weren't isolated incidents at one show, they were reflective of an entire industry culture that protected perpetrators while silencing victims. The fact that it took this long for accountability to even begin to surface shows just how normalized this harassment had become. So here's the thing, Friends was built on laughs and felt like comfort TV for millions. But behind those carefully crafted jokes was a writer's room where women's bodies became the actual punchline. The real tragedy isn't just what was said, it's that speaking up meant risking everything. That's the dark side of Hollywood that nobody wanted to acknowledge until someone finally had the courage to tell the truth.